What's going on, guys? Uriel came here. Welcome to HPTV Live. This is the place where I'm hooking you up with awesome business and marketing insights to help you turn your expertise for health and fitness into a thriving online business that creates more impact, income, and freedom. And today we're talking about 6 planning tricks to help you get more done in less time and basically help you become super productive. That's what this is all about, because it's not about working yourself into the ground, right? It's about doing more with less. Efficiency. Okay, so before we get started, let me know where you're joining me in from. We're inside the group. If you're watching me on YouTube, then what's up? Let me know. So I'm going to be using, actually, you know what, guys? We've got something special for you today. If you're inside the Healthpreneur group, you will have access to a special cool tool that I'm going to let you know about in just a few moments. I'll just show it to you again. It comes with the sound effects as well. So we're going to be talking about 6 elements to helping you become a lot more productive. And these elements happen to be on the very page I just showed you. So we're going to walk through these. This is something I use on a weekly basis to help really focus what I need to be working on. And I want to share these with you as well because they're super helpful. Okay, so before we get into that, what did you guys think of the elections last night? I don't know. I don't know. What was interesting is I posted a video up on my profile page on Monday about how it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who the president is. Clinton, Trump. Well, we obviously know that it's Trump now. Shockingly, it's Trump. Like, holy cow, right? Only in America could that happen. But I said, like, listen, it doesn't matter who is in charge because you are in charge of your life, right? You're in charge of your life. You're in charge of the decisions you make. You are responsible. If you're not responsible, you're basically saying, I'm a victim. I have no control over my future. And you put yourself in a very, very, very powerless position. When you assume control over your destiny, over your day-to-day existence, you're basically saying, listen, I am the creator of my life. I'm the creator of my future. It doesn't really matter what happens around me. I create my own economy. I create my own ecosystem of awesomeness. And it doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter if bombs are falling or economies are collapsing. I will provide value to this world in a way that supports other people and me. That's a belief that I personally live by, okay? So that's why I don't watch the news. That's why I don't really care what happens in politics, because really, unless we have some kind of crazy dictator like Hitler, I think we'll be okay. And you know what's actually pretty scary is that if you look at a lot of the things that Trump talked about in his, just his speaking and his platform, it's very similar to what good old Adolf was saying, 60 years ago. Pretty crazy stuff. So not sending people to gas chambers, but there's a lot of very similar undertones, which is kind of scary. So anyways, I don't know how you guys found the elections, but how's it going, Phil? Hope you're doing well, buddy. Cool. All right, so broadcast was interrupted every few seconds. Hopefully it's doing okay. Not too sure why it's doing that, but nonetheless, it's being recorded for later purposes. Okay, so anyways, enough about the election. Let's talk about how to plan more effectively. Okay, let's talk about getting stuff done. So first and foremost, the first thing you want to really identify, you may want to just jot this stuff down, take a piece of paper out, is you want to identify, why is it that I'm doing this? Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? So like for me, like, why is it important that I build Healthpreneur to whatever the level we want to take it to? Why is it important that we attract more people into our ecosystem? And for me, it's really simple because there's obviously personal, obviously business, financial, personal things that I want to achieve within that. But on a global or more global perspective, if I can help more health and fitness professionals become savvier, more intelligent with how they market their own awesomeness, then you get to help more people, right? And if we collectively help more people, guess what? Then we help more people. And that's kind of my mission, is both on my health business and in Healthpreneur, is to end suffering. I want to end suffering for the consumer so that they're no longer struggling with their own weight. And again, that just comes out of my own history, because I suffered for a number of years with my hair loss and autoimmune stuff. I don't want to see people go through that. Not losing the hair and stuff, but their own degree of suffering. On the business standpoint, I remember struggling for years when I started my online business. And it sucked. Like it really, really did, because I had no direction. I thought I could figure this stuff out on my own. So again, I'm in a position now where I've acquired a good degree of wisdom, even though I'm still learning every single day. I'm at a point now where I can really guide a lot of you to a better future. And I want to help you do that without all the mistakes and all the nonsense that I went through, because there really is a lot of wasted time, energy, and resources. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense for you. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So when you're planning your stuff out here, just at the top of the page, write down, what's the vision I'm working towards? Why is it important that I get that? Why is it important that I get towards that end result? Because that's super important. That's kind of like the guiding beacon light, the light that's going to keep you going. That's your North Star that you're always working towards in the back of your mind, that's going to help you overcome the obstacles, because your why is always going to be greater than any challenges or obstacles that may come your way. Okay, it has to be something that really gets you emotionally in your heart and your gut, that you really feel passionate about. Okay, I'm just gonna have a sip of water here. Next, we want to identify, if we look at in a given week, okay, there's only so much we can do, right? So the key here is to focus on planning, right? So Brian Tracy has this great quote: every minute of planning saves you 10 minutes in execution. So this is a beautiful exercise to do on a Sunday before the week starts. Sit down and just write down, what are the 3 most important outcomes I must get done this coming week? So this could be projects, whatever things you're working on, but what are the 3 most important things that if nothing else got accomplished but these 3 things, I know I would feel good about my progress. So you want to really think about this. And this is where, if we kind of backtrack a little bit, you can do something that I do probably on a weekly basis, or whenever my mind feels a little overwhelmed, excuse me, is a brain dump. So you write down everything that's on your mind, business-wise, personal, whatever's going on. Just write everything down on a sheet of paper. A lot of this actually becomes your to-dos, right? Your things that you want to get done, or things that haven't been done, or incompletions. From that, that's kind of like, that's good raw material, because now you can go to the second exercise and look at, what are the 3 most important things I need to get done this week? You could literally look at that list and say, yeah, this is massively important. This one, not so much. This one, yes. And you basically pull those out and you put them into that 1, 2, 3 priority. Because when you have only 3 things to focus on for the week, 3 kind of bigger things, it really helps clarify where you spend your time. Because if you just have a lot of to-dos, right, you can be busy without being effective. Effective is essentially doing the right things. Efficiency is doing those things the right way. We want to be both effective and efficient. But honestly, if you had to choose one or the other, you would probably be better off being effective, because if you're spending a lot of time or even a little time on doing something, that something needs to be a needle mover in your business. Okay? So that's why it's important that when we look at business, your business, that it's not a job, that it's a business, it's a system that supports you, because a business should be able to run without your presence required. Okay? So no Yuri required, batteries not included, right? Stuff like that. If a business requires your presence at each stage, then you essentially have a job. So we want to think about, what are the 3 most important things that I need to do that only I can do, or that need to get done with my kind of supervision or guidance. Because if you get those 3 things done, first and foremost, you help build your machine more effectively. And second, it frees up your time to do other things that you actually want to do. Right? You don't have to worry about $10 an hour tasks when somebody else can do that stuff. Don't even include that in your stuff of oh, I gotta, design a banner or something. Like, that's a waste of time. Have somebody else do that for you. So that's the second step. Okay, so we're gonna write down our 3 most important things we want to get done this week. Next, we want to look at, what are the potential obstacles and solutions that we can forecast ahead of time. So let me give you an example. So let's say one of my objectives for this week is to complete a new webinar. Okay, so get this new webinar done, uploaded, ready to go. Boom. That's the objective. I have to get that thing done. One of the obstacles might be, well, I didn't think it was going to take this long to get it done. So instead of, if I'm budgeting, let's say it's going to take me 5 hours to get this webinar done, and it takes me 20, then that's something that I need to think about potentially forecasting. Because if I think, hey, it's all gonna be great, and then it never happens, then you actually start looking back and like, oh, I didn't get this done. You start beating yourself up. So think about what are some obstacles that might stand in the way. One, it might take longer than I expect to get this thing done. So then what's a possible solution to that obstacle? So what we're doing here is we're visualizing into the future, but we're visualizing things not going as we want them to. Now, understand that this is not the same as believing things are not going to work out for you, right? I'm a huge believer in the law of attraction and the fact that you have to focus on what you want as opposed to what you don't want. But I'm also a believer in the fact that you have to be realistic about the fact that sometimes it's not going to always go out exactly as you want. It's not going to happen exactly as you think it will. So you have to have contingencies. You have to have a plan B, a plan C. What if people don't, for like another example, we set up a specific ad campaign, right? For a specific offer. Awesome, right? Now what happens if the cost per lead is like 10 times more than I was expecting? Or what happens if it just doesn't convert? Okay, well, if I'm thinking at that point in time after it's already happened, oh man, like this isn't working. Now what do I do, right? Now you're caught like a deer in the headlights. But if you can forecast this stuff ahead of time, so when you're about to launch this funnel, as you're thinking about it, as you're brainstorming it, okay, here's the first option. This is what we're gonna go live with. However, I'm already thinking of contingency plans. Okay, well, what if people don't opt in for this? What if this doesn't resonate with this specific audience? What other thing could we develop as a substitute or an alternative or as a backup plan that we can have ready to deploy if that doesn't work out? This is a huge thing that I don't think a lot of people do because they don't want to focus on the negative, or maybe they just don't really think about doing this at all. But doing this is really, really powerful because, again, it gives you, when you have to, it's like, it goes back to planning, right? If you're planning, if you have to figure things out in the moment, it's not going to happen. It's like, you get home after a long day's work and now you're trying to figure out what you're going to have for dinner. It's not going to happen, right? And you guys know this, right? That's what we're teaching people. We're teaching people to plan their meals, plan their workouts. It's the same thing. If you don't plan for potentially what may go wrong, you're going to be caught like a deer in the headlights. You're going to be like, what do I do? Or you're going to waste more time and money going down a path that just isn't worthwhile. So what are the potential obstacles and what are the potential solutions for those obstacles? Write down 2 or 3 in total for those 3 objectives, okay? Those weekly objectives. So that's the third piece of this puzzle. Okay, so next what we're going to do, and I'm just going to show this page to you because it may make sense. So this is my weekly planner, and you guys can actually download this for free inside the Healthpreneur group on Facebook. If you're not part of the group, well, you should be, right? We'll put a link in here, obviously, to join us. Okay, so we just covered vision, 3 things you want to get done this week, potential obstacles and challenges and their solutions, wherever they are. Actually, before all that, we should have talked about your quarterly objectives. What are the big rocks that you're working towards this quarter? Because when we talked about the 3 outcomes this week, they should be reflective of moving you towards these quarterly objectives. So I call these the Focus 5. But to be very honest with you, I've actually destroyed the Focus 5 and I'm going to like the Focus 1. Because I'm like, what's the one thing that if you only focused on this one thing for the next 90 days would massively transform your business? So in my health business, we're just focusing right now on our total wellness cleanse. That's the only thing we're focusing on from a marketing perspective. So everything we do outside of our blog and content, which is kind of doing its thing, all of our focus is on our cleanse, tweaking, optimizing, making it work to the point where on its own, it's a multiple 7-figure funnel and we can just move on to something else.
So from that, I can look at, okay, if this is one of my most important objectives for the quarter, how do I break that down into the smaller steps, the smaller projects, the milestones that have to be met in order to reach the bigger objective? So you want to, again, if you don't have these already, you should probably plan. I'm not a huge believer in planning out the entire year because a lot of stuff can happen and a lot of things you project for, 9 months from now may become irrelevant. But at least for the next 90 days, what are the most important things you want to get done? 1, 2, 5 at the most. Again, if you've got a team of people, 5 potentially, but if it's just yourself or 1, 2 people, I would strongly suggest one thing. Just focus on one thing and make that your objective for the quarter. Okay, and then working back from that, what are the 3 things this week that will move me closer to that? What are the obstacles and possible solutions to those obstacles? Okay. And then I'm going to just flip onto the back side of this page, which is we have our weekly objectives, right? The 3 big things we want to do this week. Then we're going to break them down into processes or tasks or micro things that you can just literally, what's the next actionable step? So again, if I want to get this webinar out, that's the bigger, my microphone's about to fall here. That's the bigger objective, right, for this week. What are the different elements in that, right? So we're always looking at breaking something down into smaller pieces, smaller pieces, to the point where you know exactly the next actionable thing to do is this. Because a lot of times we get overwhelmed and we don't take action because of what we're thinking about in our mind with respect to this task is too big. It's too overwhelming. So if my task was to get webinar done, what's the next thing? What's the next logical, actionable, tangible thing I can do to move me in that direction? If I just say get webinar done, what does that mean? That's just so ambiguous. There's so much that could be done within that. So I'm going to break that down. I'm going to look at, okay, well, I'm going to come up with the hook for the entire webinar. What's the one thing I want people to believe? What are the 3 things that I can, content-wise that I can disclose to them within that webinar? Then second, maybe it's what's the story that I can share? What's the one story that resonates, obviously it's a real story, that is related to this topic that we can weave into the webinar? Third might be, well, let's create the webinar slides, right? Use Keynote to create webinar slides. Fourth, maybe it's record the actual webinar, right? Or set up the landing page for it or whatever it is. So you want to really break this stuff down to the next actionable step. So when you look at your list, right, which says specific actions to achieve this week's outcomes, you know exactly the, number 1, oh, this is the first logical step I want to take for this. That makes sense. I can see myself getting that done. Write email. Boom. Write, or sit down and brainstorm idea for 1 hour. Okay? Brainstorm is, so you're thinking about all of these tasks should begin with a verb. Brainstorm. It's not a passive activity. A lot of times my tasks involve brainstorm. So it's brainstorm funnel for XYZ, right? Because if I can brainstorm and strategize that whole funnel ahead of time, then I can kind of deconstruct it and break it down into, okay, record webinar, write email sequence, stuff like that. Okay, but it should begin with a verb because it should be action oriented. So one of the things that I've also put in this sheet is 2 columns here. Well, first of all, is a check mark, right? So if you have that done, you just check it off. Second, and the reason I put this together, I put this together about 1.5 years ago because, so this is a 2-page. I actually just printed off side, 2-sided normally. So it would look like this, right? So the reason I put this together was because I've used every single planner you can think of, and I start using it for a week, and then I'm like, nah, this sucks. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me. It's missing a component. It's not laid out properly. I'm so far, I'm working on this thing here, but I forgot what my initial objective was way back 30 pages ago. They're not laid out properly, at least for my brain. So I put this thing together for myself because this is how my brain operates, and I figured, maybe it'll help you guys as well. So on this actions page, when you check something off, it's done. One of the cool things that I've included here is right there. There's two little cells, right? Whatever you want to call them. And there's a little clock above them. So the first one is we're putting in projected time. So for me to write an email, what is the projected time I think it's going to take to write the email? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? Whatever that is, write it in. Because once you've done the task, then you can go back, and if you time this or just look at your clock, this is super helpful because you can look at, wow, this took me, I thought it was going to take me 10 minutes, but it took me 30. It took me 3 times longer than I thought to get this done. That's a huge, huge epiphany, because if you can be more realistic with how long stuff is going to take to get done, that's super valuable, okay? So as you do this more often, you'll be like, okay, there's a couple of the action items that are similar week to week. Now you can be a little bit more accurate with your projections. So what you would do is you have all of your actions lined up, and at the bottom you would write down what's the total projected time for this week. So all these things was projected times. Add them all up. Maybe it's what's funny is you'll actually find that it's not 40 hours. It's not even 60 hours. This stuff is the most important stuff, okay? For me, usually it hovers between 15 and 20 hours a week. So why is it then that so many of us are spending 40, 50 hours a week working? It's because we get distracted. We focus on menial tasks that mean nothing for our business. And we waste time on social media or other things that are just a distraction. So when you have this, you're like, wow, I really only need to be doing 12 hours of work a week. That's it. Then we just start filling in the gaps with all sorts of other nonsense. So it's a super, super valuable tool. And then at the end of the week, what you would do is you would basically look at how much time did it actually take me. So when you have this basically handy with you, projected time, actual time. Add up all the actual times, write it in at the bottom. If you projected 12 and it took you 27, there's a big discrepancy. But at least now you know where were you off. And the more kind of feedback you give yourself, the more you understand how you work, the more efficient you become, and the more effective you become. So that's what you do at the end of the week. Now, if we go back to the first page at the bottom here, 3 reflections, it's really important, okay? So you can do this in the planning of the week as well as at the end of the week. So it kind of goes both ways. First question is, what has to happen this week for me to feel happy with my progress? Is it get everything done, or is it get one thing done? Whatever it is. Number 2, what's the one thing I'm doing that somebody else can do better? This is a great question to answer, because a lot of times it'll be stuff like creating graphics on Canva, or setting up an opt-in page, or queuing up emails in Aweber. A lot of that stuff can be done by other people, okay? So you want to identify what's one thing I'm doing that somebody else can do better, or at least as good or as what I'm doing right now, because that'll give you the opportunity to find someone to do that and get it off your plate. And then third is, what have I learned this week? Okay, so this is looking back over the week. What have I learned this week that can make me and next week even better? So this is when you start to look at, okay, well, I noticed that I grossly overestimated or underestimated how much time it was going to take me to do something. Maybe I'm just wasting a lot of time. Maybe I'm not as productive as I think I am. Maybe I work better in a coffee shop. Maybe I work better at home. Maybe I want to be on an airplane to get my best work done. Whatever it is, like, you want to find some type of takeaway every single week that becomes your reflection. Right? Wow, like from this, I learned this. This simple tool is massively powerful, because the more you learn about yourself, the more efficient you become, the more productive you become as an entrepreneur. And as an entrepreneur, you have nobody like cracking the whip on you other than your customers, which is a good whip, right? So it's a really, really valuable tool. And actually the final thing I'll mention here is a KPI tracking thing here, okay? So you put in what is the measurable, right? Maybe it's the size of your list, maybe it's revenue, maybe it's something else, right? So you have your goal, and then you'd have quarter to date. So if this is the second week of the quarter, you would write down where you are as of this second week in relation to where you started, okay? And then you also have this goal reference, right? So if you want to have a list of 10,000 people, and the second week of the quarter, you're at 500, boom, now you know you're at 500, you're going to 10,000. Next week, hopefully you're at 1,000, whatever it is, right? So super valuable. So let's look at this again, these 6 elements. What's the vision? Why are you doing this? What are your quarterly objectives? Ideally pick one. Don't worry about the 5, just pick one. Break those down into 3 important objectives for this week. What's the potential obstacle that might prevent you from achieving these, and can you come up with a solution? We flip on the back. Based on those 3 objectives, how do you break those down into actionable tasks, right? Actionable steps that are verb related, right? Brainstorm, write, shoot video, record, whatever it is, okay? Write those tasks down, associate a projected time, check them off when they're done, write down the actual time. And then at the end of the week, come back to a reflection on what you learned about yourself this week. Obviously, remember to answer those 2 questions at the beginning of the week as well. And that is your weekly planner, my friends. 2-page, amazing, productive tool that will turn you into a getting shit done master. So there it is, guys. I hope you've enjoyed that. I know that the live version of this broadcast has been choppy, so I apologize for that. But if you're watching the replay, then it's all good. Once again, you can download this tool inside the files section in the Healthpreneur group, okay? So if you go to files, it'll be in there. Actually, it's the only file, which makes things pretty easy for you. Okay, so just click on Weekly Planner, download it, use it. It's also a fillable PDF, so you don't have to print it off. You can actually fill it in on your computer, which is what I do most of the time. And there it is. So thank you once again for joining me for this HPTV live episode. Again, I'm here to help you turn your expertise for health and fitness into a thriving online business that creates more impact for others, more income and freedom for you. And that's what this is all about. All right. So until next time, be great, do great, and I'll see you inside our Healthpreneur community. The link for that is below if you're not already in it. And let me know your comments below. Ciao.